I'm Ernie Humphrey, Educational Programs Leader at Performative, the largest online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Managing Recurring Revenue, New Solutions to Optimize Income Without Stressing IT. Today, the ability to increase revenue with subscription or consumption offerings is driving new business for companies large and small. However, delivering the features, benefits, and capabilities necessary to offer the subscription or consumption products or services their customers want and will buy on a recurring basis can be a challenge. At the same time, companies must continue to ensure customer satisfaction and retention, all without stress to their IT or financial operations resources. This webinar will examine the key issues finance and accounting leaders face when implementing and optimizing a recurring revenue business model while integrating with key existing systems and services. You will also hear how companies are leveraging technology to embrace recurring revenue models to drive company growth. A few items before we get started. I would like to thank Aria Systems, whose commitment to thought leadership helps us make this event possible and offered at no cost. A quick note on today's agenda. First, we'll hear a joint presentation from our featured speakers, John Gettinger and Bob Harden, and then we'll move into our interactive Q&A session, where we will spend the remainder of our hour. We would like this to be an interactive experience for you, so if you have any questions at any time, please go to the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel and send us your questions. We can't promise to get all of them in, but we'll do our best and we'll follow up afterwards on any we did not get to today. A few more logistical notes on our webinar today. A link to today's presentation and video recording of this webinar will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event, and note the presentation is already posted on www.performative.com/resources for free download. Those who would like CPE credits will need to answer all polling questions during the event and should have pre-registered for CPE credit. For any questions on CPE credits, please contact cpe@performative.com. Again, we encourage you to ask questions on today's topic via the questions box and you go to webinar control panel anytime during the webinar today. Finally, you'll be asked to take a short survey regarding the webinar, and we would greatly appreciate your feedback regarding our event today, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for their valuable time. A quick word about Performative. Performative is the largest and fastest growing online community and resource for senior level corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related leaders. Performative connects corporate finance leaders to provide instant advice and insights on the tough strategic challenges they face every day. Okay, let's get started by introducing today's first speaker, John Gettinger, Senior Vice President of Marketing Systems, Aria Systems. As Senior Vice President, John is responsible for Aria Systems' global marketing strategy, including product marketing, channel marketing, demand generation, and corporate communication. John has more than 20 years of experience marketing and selling business software applications to multi-billion-dollar enterprises, including his most recent role as head of marketing for Accept Software. Prior to this, he led marketing for Fortify Software, acquired by Hewlett-Packard, where he grew the enterprise customer base from 200 to more than 1,000 and launched Fortify On Demand, the company's first SaaS offering. John studied computer engineering at Case Western University. With that, it is my distinct pleasure to hand the floor over to John. John, please take it away for us.
Thanks, Ernie. And thank you all for attending. Welcome, everybody. And we've got a great presentation for you today. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about what's going on in the world now around recurring revenue and why it's such a hot topic. Then I'm going to turn it over to Bob Harden, who's the former Director of Global Billing Solutions Experian, and Bob's going to take you through, while he was working at Experian, some of the challenges they faced in terms of recurring revenue and how they used technology to solve those problems, and then we'll wrap it up. And along the way, we'll have a few questions, polling questions to answer. So here we go. So just a quick little infomercial about Aria. Aria is a cloud solution provider, and what we do is we actually offer a software application in the cloud that enables companies, enterprises, to be able to turn their billing into a strategic recurring revenue management operation in their business, and enables them to use that to expand their markets, quickly introduce new products and services, create new revenue streams, and increase overall customer lifetime value. If you're interested in learning more about Aria, I encourage you all to go visit us at the website. It's www.ariasystems.com. So let's talk a little bit about recurring revenue and what's going on in the world. If you've been paying any attention at all to what's going on out in the world of business, you'll notice that there are a lot of services popping up that are offering things on subscription basis, whether that's a cocktail plan I recently saw, pet food, movies, entertainment, et cetera, et cetera. Also, you may notice that there's a lot of services popping up that are offering people pay-as-you-go type offerings. It's, of course, the most famous is Amazon now with their cloud computing power, where they offer you actually ability to use your computing power. You just buy it like you would buy electricity or your water and gas. As you use it, it's what we call consumption. So that's not just one-off. That's actually part of a giant trend that's going on in the industries throughout the world of moving things into recurring revenue. What we call recurring revenue products and services. More and more businesses are offering them. Not only small companies and startups, but actually large companies are getting into the game. And we've collected a lot of interesting statistics about this, but you probably have one or more plans on your own already. As we've found that about $900 a month is spent on monthly subscriptions by the average consumer. So this is a big opportunity that's out here. Many businesses are moving into it. If you're not now, you probably will be in the future. So it's good to pay attention to what's going on in this area, because recurring revenue is definitely the way that the world's going. I think two interesting statistics that we've collected. One was from Gartner, where they recently, in a recent report, they had put this very interesting fact out: was 35% of global 2,000 companies will be generating between 5 and 10% of their business through subscription-based services and recurring revenue models. So that's a pretty huge number. I did a back-of-the-napkin calculation on that once, and that's about $9 trillion when you take the total weight of the global 2,000 companies. That's not an insignificant amount of money, and I think that's attests to what's really going on out there in the world. Also, cloud billing as a category, which part of what Aria is in, is projected to be about almost a $500 million business within 2014. So what's really going on here? Well, recurring revenue has a couple different options, and it's something. It's not just subscriptions. I like to think of it as really a continuum between, on one end, you've got pure subscriptions, which are things like newspapers and magazines. It's a great example of what a pure subscription offering would be. You pay a monthly or weekly fee, and you get a newspaper or magazine. It's more or less the same size as the other newspaper and magazines you got in the previous month. So that's pure subscription. On the other hand, you have a pure consumption type of model, which is best exemplified, like I said, by something like Amazon, where you're buying your computer storage power by the megabyte or by the CPU cycle, but you're basically paying for just what you use. Water and gas, of course, is another one that we're all familiar with, where you only pay for the amount of stuff you use. And then in the middle, you have a combination. So there are like phone plans where you have subscription and usage together, where you pay a fixed monthly fee, and you get a certain amount of usage associated with that monthly fee, and you can pay a little bit more, and you get more usage. And of course, there's overages are billed as extra charges. So there's recurring revenue fits into any of those combinations. We've seen companies that have all sorts of variations on these themes, and have brought together different advantages to that. So there's a couple points I want to make about recurring revenue. One is that if you're new to recurring revenue and you're looking at this as a business model, it's not just about charging that card every month or sending out an invoice every month. It's actually a bit more complicated than that. It's really a different way of doing business, and it has impact across a number of different aspects of how you do business. One of them, of course, is in terms of just the basic measurements of performance in the business. Those transition quite a bit. So, in the past, where you think about things like revenue, how much money do we get in this month, you start looking at things like recurring revenue. How much money are we getting in every month from the same set of customers? Because those customers, we've already paid some money to acquire them, and now we're monetizing on a monthly basis. We paid sales and marketing costs to get those customers online, and now every month we're getting a certain amount of that revenue that's just flowing in based on the subscriptions that we've sold. So that's what's known as monthly recurring revenue. And you start looking at that as separate from the revenue that you might have as your business. Rather than looking at things like customer loyalty, you also look at things like customer churn, which is how many of those subscribers that we spent our money to acquire are abandoning their subscriptions at renewal time. It's a very important number, because part of what makes recurring revenue really work is that the lifetime value of that customer. So if it's a yearly subscription, you're not going to recognize that revenue, of course, in the entire year, but you are going to watch the billings for that. So if it's a $1,000 subscription, then hey, we just billed the customer for $1,000. That's an important number. We're going to monetize. We're going to accrue that over time and amortize that over time. But that $1,000 billing is an important number to watch. So the big point is your performance, the way you measure and look at performance in your business is going to change. There's also a whole different set of drivers in terms of a customer relationship, and I think this is a point that's often overlooked in considering recurring revenue as a business strategy, is that the way you relate to your customer is going to change. The customer relationship and the way you manage that is going to change. Why? Well, as I said earlier, you now have a long-term contract with that customer, which in many cases the customer can abandon at some point or change. And so you want to make sure that that relationship is rock solid so that you can continue to earn money on that relationship. It's not in the old days where you sold a widget and you got $1,000 and the customer went his way and you went your way, and maybe he showed up again and not. Now what you've done is you've traded a little bit of that money up front to the customer, gave it back to the customer, so you have this long-term relationship. But it's up to you to keep that relationship healthy and alive in order to realize all that value. I think a statistic I heard a while back is that it costs Netflix about $35 to $75 to acquire a customer. And so that's a lot of months of rental just to pay back that relationship, that acquisition cost, and then you want to, of course, generate profit on top of that. So, at a typical subscription price that's whatever, $12, $14, it's 4 or 5 months just to pay that acquisition cost, and then of course you want to make profits. I think that consideration of how are we going to keep our customers on board and happy long enough to realize the value from this relationship. The difference in that and sending an invoice, out every now and then. And it's actually, as I said, for the reasons we just talked about, it's a bit more complicated than that. You've got a bunch of new performance metrics and ways of analyzing and understanding performance, and you have a whole new relationship management component that you don't have. And so, recurring revenue, when you sum all that together, it's really what we like to say here at Aria is that recurring revenue is a process. It's a different type of process than the old way of billing and charging for products and services. And so, there's like a process. This is a multi-step set of activities, and we've come up with this process diagram to describe what are the capabilities that you need in a recurring revenue business. So you've got to think about how to acquire and expand the relationship, how to acquire it initially, and then of course when the renewal comes, how to expand it. How do I upsell it? How do I cross-sell them into something new? You've got to think about service activation and notification. If you're in the digital products area, how are we going to activate that service? How are we going to notify the customer that the service is available, it's changed, et cetera, et cetera? Of course, over the course of usage or subscription, you've got to track usage, and especially if you're charging on a consumption basis, you need to track how much is being consumed of the good and service, and you've got to be able to respond if there's thresholds that are being met or et cetera. What happens if someone uses up all their service 1 week into the month? How do you deal with those situations? So there's considerations in that area. And of course, the all-important thing is calculating billing, taxation. There's the all-important dunning. What happens if a payment doesn't go through? Are you going to just terminate the service immediately, or are you going to put the customers into some kind of purgatory and manage them in a way until you either convert them back into a paying customer or discard them? So all these, there's a lot of steps to this process. It's a lot more complicated, as I said, than people initially think. And just to give you guys a little bit more depth on this, as you can see, there's many considerations here that have to be thought through when you're doing a recurring revenue as you bring it into the business the first time. Or many of you have experimented with it and now are finding that you're running into some of these issues. So that's a quick overview about recurring revenue and what's going on in the world out there, and I think we've now got a polling question coming up.
Oh, thank you very much for that great content, John. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and launch our first polling question here. A moment. As a reminder, for those of you in the audience after CPE credit today, you will need to answer all the polling questions. Of course, we sincerely appreciate everyone's consideration in answering today's polling question. So please go ahead and answer the polling question here as posted on there. And we're going to go ahead and keep this open for a while here. Okay, as we wind down the first polling question, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Bob Harden. He's the former software director, Global Corporate Systems at Experian. Bob Harden has over 30 years of experience as an IT professional in the healthcare and information system industry, including more than 15 years in supporting billing and revenue processes. In his former role as Global Director of Billing Software for Experian, Bob has worked with industry-leading billing, CRM, and ERP packages, supporting a wide variety of monetization models for business units on 5 different countries. With that, it is my pleasure to hand the floor over to Bob Harden. Bob, please take it away. Just left-click on your screen and take it away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ernie. So my name is Bob Harden. As Ernie said, I have roughly 30 years of experience in the IT industry, about half of that with billing systems. I had global responsibility for the deployment of billing solutions at Experian, worked with business units on about 5 different continents. What we're going to talk about today, I think, is one of the, probably the coolest project that I had an opportunity to work on while I was at Experian. What you need to know about Experian heading into this discussion is Experian's a global company, a large global company, operating pretty much anywhere where information services products are useful, and growing rapidly. And that growth is being driven by a fairly aggressive expansion practice in existing markets and in opening up new markets. The goal of Experian is to expand, to build that business to become the #1 global provider of information services products. They're doing that within existing markets and also expanding globally. And the project we want to talk about today is one of those expansion projects. Got called into a meeting not that long ago where the topic was a business expansion opportunity. Again, Experian was looking to grow the business by moving into new markets or expanding in existing markets. And I was called with a number of other business leaders into a meeting to discuss expansion into a new market in Australia, creation of a new credit bureau in Australia. That bureau is now up and running, has been up and running for a few months. So it's public knowledge of that information now, and then also expansion of operations in other markets outside the U.S. So when you get into a meeting like that, my role in providing billing solutions for businesses and in needing to provide a billing solution that will facilitate that expansion of the business, I have a few questions. What products are we talking about? Experian has a variety of product lines, everything from credit reporting to analytics to portfolio monitoring, a wide variety of information products to help businesses manage risk of the relationships with their customers. Which of those products are we talking about? And how will those products be consumed? How will they be delivered? How will consumption be monitored? how much consumption are we looking at, what type of scalability are we looking at, and the answer to those questions was, well, we'll let you know. Okay. How will we monetize those products? Are we talking about order-based? Are we talking about subscription, recurring revenue? What are we looking at here? Well, those models will be defined. We do have some existing business in place in some of these countries that we'll be going into. And where we have those businesses in place, you're actually going to be constrained in future solutions because you'll need to continue to support that business and support the business processes that are in place. You'll want to standardize as much as possible, but you will need to be able to support existing local business processes, especially where those are driven by the need to comply with local government regulations. So we came out of that meeting, a group of us kind of shaking our heads, thinking we didn't really know very much about what was going on here. But the decision we made at that point in time was to pull together a cross-functional team, a couple of folks from finance, someone from my IT team, someone who would consult with us from the product development side, and then an external consultant who we'd worked with quite a bit on revenue strategies, starting with a billing project about 8 or 9 years previously in the UK, and then that consultant had been with us pretty consistently since then. So they had a good feel for our business and what we were trying to accomplish. And our goal was to go find a billing solution. So the first step then is to try to understand the business strategy and requirements. And this will be common for you if you're looking into a recurring revenue strategy or recurring revenue offering. You start with, what's our business strategy? How are we going to measure success? What's the business strategy? What are our requirements? Our requirements were fairly vague. So we had to focus somewhat on providing kind of a generic solution. We identified some business challenges that would be part of either expanding a small business or starting up a new business. And I think a lot of these will be common to your situation if you're looking at recurring revenue. The first was we had to provide a low cost to serve, to be competitive in pricing, to provide profit margins. We needed to provide a low cost to serve, and that would be measured in several ways. One would be a limited startup investment. And billing projects tend to be expensive, especially when you start to look at the big box software implementations. And we couldn't afford an 8-digit or probably even a 7-digit implementation cost to get some of these small businesses going or to expand on our smaller businesses. We also wanted to minimize those ongoing IT costs and provide some level of cost certainty. Again, as startup businesses tend to start slowly in that industry, we need to be able to provide the business with a way to minimize the IT costs and provide some degree of cost certainty. And then also to provide some low-touch processes. And this was important for a couple of reasons. One is because we were looking at, again, at fairly small operations. We didn't want to burden the back office. We didn't want to create a billing solution that would take somebody hours to set up new customers, set up a new pricing plan, or that would require IT to get involved in creating new products and new price plans. It's also important to your customer. Your customer doesn't want to spend a lot of time with billing either. We wanted to be able to support a shared services approach if possible. A rapid time to market was really important for us. Accelerated ramp up. Billing projects, if you go out and talk to the big vendors, or you go talk to the big consulting firms like Accenture and Deloitte, they'll tell you that these projects take a minimum of 12 to 18 months. Some of the smaller vendors might tell you they can bring their solutions up in 9 to 12 months, but we needed a faster ramp-up time than that. And we needed to be able to bring new products and services on board quickly. What we learned as we were going through this process was that one of the key strategies for our product delivery systems was going to be to provide the capability to present new products or new bundles of products to our customers quickly, so we needed to be able to support that. And then we wanted to reach some unserved or underserved market segments. Experian, by its nature, is very good in some markets and not as good in others. And we wanted to really facilitate reaching some of those unserved and underserved market segments while not doing anything that would impact existing business. There were some additional challenges that we had. We wanted to be able to integrate with existing systems. Experian had just deployed a global single instance of the Oracle ERP package. We were leading edge, bleeding edge on release 12.0. I want to give a shout out. Bob Vonderay is probably on this webcast today, and Bob was one of the leaders in pulling that project together to do the Oracle deployment. We also wanted to integrate with CRM. We wanted to be able to develop a full process so that you could have an end-to-end view of the customer, and not even just of the customer, but from the prospect stage through the order and onboarding stage through to the financial side of the business. And so we wanted to integrate all these solutions together. From a business side, marketing side, they didn't want to leave money on the table. They wanted to make sure that they had the right products for markets. That wasn't so much my problem, but I needed to provide a solution that would support the rapid deployment of new products, the rapid ability to bundle products differently or create new pricing plans, and to provide a variety of monetization models. So again, Experian does pretty much everything that you would expect a billing system to be able to do, from orders through usage, through subscriptions, and through lots of variations on all of those models. We wanted to be able to measure the effectiveness of the offerings so that they could be right priced. We didn't want to give products away. We didn't want to leave money on the table. That's especially important in the subscription models. You want to make sure that your heavy user customers are not costing you money to serve. We wanted to provide capabilities for cross-sell and upsell, and make this system easy enough to use and simple enough for our customers to work with, that we could reduce churn. We wanted to support a variety of revenue recognition rules, and something that's really important in a recurring revenue world is capturing relationships, not just orders. And that meant a couple of things to us. Very important to us was the ability to provide foot-in-the-door opportunities, whether it's through freemiums or special one-time offers, limited time special pricing, those types of deals that would allow us to get a foot in the door with the customer and then to build a relationship and maximize the relationship over time. We spent several months working with vendors. Our external consultants actually did a review of about 25 different vendors. We turned him loose on the market and said, you know, we know what we know, but there's some things we don't know. And one of the things we didn't know was what was available in the cloud market. We had this vague feeling that what we'd heard about the cloud billing market was that these vendors probably weren't robust enough or mature enough to support our business. To make a long story short, after a long review, after shortlisting vendors, after coming back and doing some fairly extensive use case review and walkthrough with a small handful of vendors, both in the box software side and in the cloud-based side, we wound up with a cloud-based solution. Obviously, with Aria, that's why we're here on the Aria-sponsored webcast today. And it was a solution that incorporated really an end-to-end process. So we were able to link up our CRM prospecting to capturing contracts and transferring that information from CRS or CRM, excuse me, to billing using a cloud-based integration tool, Dell Boomi. We were able to manage client provisioning on our delivery systems, again, through a combination of the integration tool and the standard APIs available with our billing solution. We were able to manage the client provisioning. We were able to generate a series of messages out of our billing system that direct the delivery systems and when to turn clients on, when to put things on hold, when to change client access, and just manage the process from one location. We were also able to use some pretty standard out-of-the-box stuff from our billing provider to integrate with our Oracle ERP solution. We had developed some custom integration on the Oracle side, and we were able to use some standard reporting capabilities within our billing platform to integrate with Oracle. So what we end up with is a complete end-to-end prospect through receivable solution that's interconnected, and everybody has access to a single view of the truth. We were able, and without giving too much information away because I can't give specific pricing information, what I can tell you is that we were able to create a variety and provide a variety of pricing models. And so with the solution that we created, we're able to provide subscription models. And we actually found, specifically in that Australian market, which was our first deployment, we found that subscriptions are a little more prevalent than we actually expected. So subscriptions is one of the tools that's in the toolkit, along with the ability to charge overages. And that really helps with that right pricing that I talked about on a previous slide. And you're familiar with that concept. I mean, a lot of us have it on our cell phones where you have X number of minutes, and then once you hit that threshold, then you're charged for additional minutes. Well, we were able to provide that capability to our business. We were able to provide a straight usage model. We were able to provide a straight order management type of model. We were able to provide prepaid where that was practical. We're able to provide things like monthly minimums, activation fees, cancellation costs, and we're able to provide some flexibility. So the business has the flexibility to provide the types of offerings that they need to provide in order to be successful in the marketplace. There were a number of benefits of going to a cloud-based solution for Experian. Obviously, some cost benefits. So we eliminated the upfront hardware software deployment costs. So usually when you deploy a billing system, you have to go buy servers, you have to buy Linux or Unix or whatever operating system you're going to run on. You have to buy database. You have to buy a variety of other tools. We eliminated most of that because we didn't buy any hardware. All we had to do was interface with an existing platform, URLs that Aria and our CRM provider provided. We got predictable ongoing costs. The vendors in this space use a variety of metrics to set pricing. That'll be a part of your negotiation process if you choose to go with a cloud-based billing provider. Experian was able to select one that gave it fairly predictable ongoing costs. And we were able to provide low-touch processes. And again, that benefits in a couple of ways. One is that we're able to provide the ability for the business to do the things that it needs to do in a fairly short amount of time with a fairly non-labor intensive task. And it also means that in order to do things like set up new products, new pricing plans, there's no need to get IT involved. The back office staff responsible for billing can do those things without any IT involvement. We shared the technology risk with the vendor. This is a big one. As finance guys, I'm sure a lot of you have had your IT people walk in and say, hey, we've got this message from one of our IT providers that this system or this database that's behind a lot of our systems is going out of support. We need to do an upgrade, and it wasn't budgeted. We don't have that. Or that's not a part of the equation when you're working with a software vendor or a cloud-based billing vendor. They are handling those technology risks. Experian got improved time to market. Now, the first, because of the nature of the project and the nature of the development work involved in going to market in Australia, it was a fairly long project, and it wasn't driven by billing. It was driven by the project delivery platform. And as we did our post-implementation review and looked at the next projects where we might be deploying cloud-based billing, we realized we were talking about deployments, future deployments in timelines that were in frames of weeks rather than months. And that's big. If you're trying to get to market in a hurry with a new product line, I mean, that's huge. We found that we provided the capability to get new product services and plans to market quickly because you didn't need an IT involvement to set any of these things up, at least on the billing side. We were able to provide a repeatable solution. We can take what we did in one market and drop probably 80 or 85% of that into the next market, which improves that time to market. And the vendor provides us with the scalability through sharing IT resources that allows us to grow as a business. So, I mean, we have a fully scalable solution, and scalability is not an issue anymore of your internal IT group. It's an issue with your vendor, and it's an issue that they need to meet in order to satisfy the needs of all their customers. At the end of a project like this, we sit down, we do a post-implementation review. And by the way, that last slide, there was a point in the abstract for this presentation that talked about becoming aware of what is key in your system so you have minimal impact to IT or financial ops if you want to go with a recurring billing solution. And these cost benefits, the improved time to market, the repeatability, the scalability, those are the things that are key to allow you to better serve your customers with that type of a platform. And those are things we have because we hooked up with, in our case, based on our requirements, we hooked up with the right vendor. I want to take a couple of more minutes and talk about some lessons learned, and this is a combination of things we learned on this project in Australia and that I learned in my role as global billing director for Experian over projects done in countries on about 3 or 4 different continents, through attending conferences, through working with some of my peers at other companies. 5 key things here that if you decide to go forward with a billing project, and what you're looking at is really a transformation, it's not just a software project. These are things that will help you be successful. And the first is strategy first, not systems. Your IT guys shouldn't be driving projects like this. The business should be driving it, and it should be the business strategy that's driving it, a strategy that's agreed at the executive level of your business. And then once you've agreed that strategy, you go find systems to help you meet the strategy. Now, that just sounds so elementary. It's business 101, IT 101. But in my 30-year career, most of the projects, or a large number of the projects I've been on have been driven as much by IT as they've been by the business. If you want to be successful, it needs to be a business strategy that's driving your solution, and part of that strategy needs to be based on a client-centric approach, improving your client experience. You know, what do you hear from clients about billing? You hear, my bill's wrong. I don't understand my pricing. I don't understand my invoice. I can't access my billing data, or payments were applied incorrectly. You want to take a client-centric approach in building that strategy. You want to make it easier for your clients to do business with you. That should be part of your retention strategy. I walked away from a mobile phone company a few years back because from month to month I couldn't understand what they were charging me. that company had a lot of churn at that point in time. One of your strategies for reducing churn is become easier to do business with, and this is one of the ways you become easier to do business with. You don't want your clients on the phone with your customer service people asking about billing. Third point, you need standards and processes. Enforceable standards with executive buy-in. There's a major U.S. bank or major global bank that's doing a billing deployment in a business unit that crosses about 60 different geographies. And they've made a determination, and one of the driving forces in the success of their project, because it's been highly successful, is they've made a determination to enforce standards globally. And if you want an exception from those standards, you might be able to get it, but you need to go before an executive committee to present a compelling case for not following those standards. So if you're looking at a business with multiple business units, multiple geographies, you want to come up with a common standard set of processes, common standard, common processes. Next is you want to deploy out-of-the-box technology. You want to eliminate the C word. One of the things that the Aria guys worked with us on was doing a customization or providing some custom business functionality that we needed at Experian without actually customizing the software platform. And we were able to take, in this case, we had something specific that we wanted to do with prepaid processing when we hit prepaid thresholds. And rather than making a change, a customization to the billing platform, what we did was take a couple of standard interfaces, a standard out-of-the-box APIs in that platform, use them to feed data into our integration rules engine, Delboomi, which executed a very simple data change and then passed that data back into the billing platform. Rather than asking for a customization of the platform that then wouldn't be necessarily supported in the next upgrade, we were able to use standard out-of-the-box functionality from our vendor to meet a custom need. And the final point is you need to measure success. And you need to have a set of business KPIs that measure the success of your strategy, not, uptime's a great measurement. In the IT side, we live and die by things like uptime. You probably on the finance side are looking at the number of billing errors and the types of billing errors. You need a set of KPIs that measure not just the success of your IT people like uptime. You need something that measures success of the business strategy that you're trying to implement. And these 5 items, if you do these 5 things, you're much more likely to be successful. You're much more likely to get halfway through a project and realize you have to turn around and go back and spend extra money, because these billing projects are not just software solutions. They are business transformation projects. I want to turn this back now to John to wrap, and then I think we have a couple of minutes to do some questions and answers. Thanks.
Next slide, please. Bob, thank you so much. Great story. Great illustration of some of the what I call lifetime value thinking you have to have and bring to a project like this. And I think I find it a very interesting story, especially some of the challenges and some of the lessons you've learned. Thank you very much for that. So anyway, just to leave you with a couple of closing thoughts here before we start in on the Q&A. I think, for those of you out there who are actively shopping for a solution now, you've already made the plunge, like Experian, you've made some decisions internally, and you're out there thinking about, what to look for in a solution. Let me give you these 4 things to think about. One is, and Bob did a great job of talking about this. Look at the characteristics in any solution around change and how do you manage changes in the solution, changes in pricing, changes in packaging, adding new products to your mix. So look for the capabilities in there of how are things going to get you to market. Bob made a great point about this, and I think when, as a vendor, when we go into situations that haven't worked out, it's a lot of times it's around the flexibility, the capabilities to adopt change. We live in a very dynamic world these days, lots of things going on, and so what your strategy today most likely will not be your strategy in a year or 2 years from now. So how hard or easy is it going to be for that technology to adapt to change? The other thing is, as I've mentioned a few times, and Bob said the same thing, look for the relationship management characteristics in your problem and also in the technology. What changes are you going to need to make in your business to delight customers so that they stay around and they renew their subscriptions, they keep consuming if you're on a usage-based plan, whatever that is, what are the changes you need to make in the business to delight customers? And if invoices are, if you have a 30% error rate with your invoices, or people are calling all the time because they don't understand where they're at with their plans, et cetera, those things have to change. Look at how the technology can help you. Any solution provider can help you solve those problems. And then finally, along with the idea of change, is really innovation. Look for capabilities in the solutions that you look at that can help you understand more about your customer and your market and your business. Because once again, we live in a dynamic world. Blockbuster 15, 20 years ago was sitting pretty in a $7 or $8 billion a year business, and now they don't exist anymore. And that can happen in any of our businesses these days. So the preserving the ability to innovate and experiment in your business is essential. So look to how the billing system can help you do that. Is it take 6 months to make a change to add a product? Is it changing pricing, a huge exercise? Is there insight that you can get from the system? What kind of metrics does the system generate? Those are all important characteristics that I recommend everybody who's evaluating systems look at very carefully. So that's it for me, and I'll turn it back over to our host, Ernie, and here's our contact information. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to contact I or Bob. We'd be happy to start any conversations about this world. We're both very passionate about it. And back to you, Ernie.
Thank you very much, John and Bob, both for your great content. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and launch the polling questions. First one at the beginning of the Q&A, and then the last one at the end of Q&A. For the sake of time, I'll just go ahead and get the Q&A kicked off with Bob. Bob, I have a question. How long did your implementation take, and what was your cost in terms of internal resources?
We had one person who was working pretty much full time with this project. I can't give you the exact costs because of an NDA, but I can tell you that previous projects that I worked on, we didn't do them with one person. We basically had one person who worked with our vendor pretty much full time as we were doing development. Our project stopped and started because we were developing in parallel with a product delivery system that took a lot longer to build than was originally anticipated. We had stops and starts. So from the time we had that first meeting to the time that we were live was over a year. But there were some stops and starts in there. We measured, like I said, we measured this project in months. We were probably working on it full time in the range of 6 to 9 months.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Bob. John, can you just speak to, is there a specific, company size or just a general question on when should a company really start looking at considering a SaaS-based billing solution?
I wouldn't say it's size. I'd say it's more complexity. And how complex is complex? Well, you know it when you see it. And I think some of the symptoms of too much complexity is, error rates. People feeling, working way harder than they should be or want to be. customer dissatisfaction. Those are all indicators that you might have an automation issue in your business. You might need a solution like Aria or some of the other ones out there to help you automate your system. Certainly we see businesses do this on spreadsheets. It's not easy, especially because some of the, when you get into some of the tax and accounting issues, doing things like, you have to amortize your revenue over, and then what happens, in some businesses where, okay, I want to upgrade my plan midstream, like I'm in the middle of a contract and I want to upgrade it, so how does that impact my accounting and blah, blah, blah. So, it can get pretty complicated. But so I wouldn't say there's a rough guideline for it. I think, it's, when it feels very complicated and there's lots of error, it's error prone, or you have to have an army of people, available to help you make sure that you don't create a lot of errors. That's probably the time where you could really justify a solution, because if you've got, we had one engagement recently where we were in at a customer and they have, 7 or 8 people doing the reporting on their revenue because of the, complexity, and that's easy to justify a solution purchase at that point. I mean, got 8 full-time people working on it. So I think that's the right way to approach it. I don't think it's a size issue. I think it's a complexity issue.
Yeah, I have a little bit different, view on that, and I think some of it has to do with how you want to view your IT function and what you want your IT guys, your IT resources to be involved in. Whether you want to be the expert in a specific application, or whether you want to manage a relationship with a vendor who's the expert in that application. I think it really has to do with your IT strategy and where you want to spend your IT dollars. Do you want to employ applications programmers? Do you want to manage a relationship with a vendor who has application programmers?
Okay, great. Thanks. Bob, I have another question for you. What was the greatest unexpected benefit to using this cloud-based application to you and your team?
The greatest unexpected benefit?
Yes.
God, that's off the top of my head. I think the thing that surprised us a little bit was the ease of use in and this is very specific, is the ease of use in working with prepaid. And in connecting with the payment solution. It's really plug and play with payment providers, and I think that surprised us a little bit.
Okay, great. John, I'll start with you, Bob. Please weigh in here as well. As recurring revenue plays a more important role in business success, how do you see companies evolving their revenue models?
I'm sorry, repeat that question again?
Oh, sure. As recurring revenue plays a more important role in the success of businesses, how do you see companies evolving their revenue models in today's world?
Wow. Well, I know Bob has a great story around this, some of the surprises they had as they went into some of these foreign markets. Maybe you should start, Bob.
Yeah, we were actually, and I mentioned Australia. We were actually a little surprised at how open some fairly large B2B provider or customers were to the idea of subscriptions. The idea of having somebody like, and I can't mention names, but you all have their card in your pocket. Having somebody like that willing to deal with you on a subscription basis as opposed to a usage basis was a surprise to us. Somebody asked in a previous webinar about rolling out these type of products, and what I think you're going to see businesses asking as they generate new product offerings is whether or not these products can be offered in a recurring environment. I think you'll see that the companies that move to recurring revenue models, the first place it'll happen is with new offers. I don't think you'll see a lot of big jumps like Adobe did, where they just shut everybody off and it's now all recurring revenue. I think you'll see more of a migration, and it'll start with new product offerings.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'd like to ask one final question before we close the Q&A. John, is there anything new on the forefront coming in the technology arena on this front you can share with us?
Sorry about the background noise, guys. We have some reason in San Francisco on Tuesdays they have a noon bell here, which is, I still don't understand why it's only Tuesdays, but anyway, forgive me, everybody. But yeah, what's new on the front end innovations? Well, I think certainly what my philosophy on my perspective on this is that recurring revenue is really the straw that broke the camel's back in many of these for revenue management operations. So whether it's sales driven or finance driven, revenue management is kind of in a crisis here because of recurring revenue, because it just breaks a lot of the old ways of doing things. And so so on the other side of that, so for many of us right now, it's about really blending. How do I bring recurring revenue into my business in a way that's manageable and not going to just be a big mess? And when you get beyond that, I think there starts to be some really interesting possibilities because of the amount of information you can collect over the course of a recurring revenue relationship is so tremendous that you can start to see the revenue management operation become a much more strategic partner in the organization, and really start to drive product strategy and sales strategy and et cetera. And so I think certainly at Aria we're planning for this future, and we're building out a lot of capabilities to let people drive this in a more strategic way. So that's, I think, the general direction that the world's headed, and this function is going to become more, revenue management is going to become, people are going to invest more in it. It's going to become more automated and better managed and more insightful and do a bunch of stuff like that. Beyond all that, I think we've got, mobile and social, social networks and mobile technologies are also really changing the landscape in a big way in terms of how consumers want to discover and purchase products. And I think we're just at the very beginnings of this. Of course, in Silicon Valley, we hear about this all the time, but I think when you get out to Peoria or Chicago or Atlanta, it's still just happening in fits and starts. But I think if we fast forward 2 to 3 years out, 4 years out, you're going to see this become a big big opportunity, a big set of challenges. And how do you integrate revenue management more deeply into these capabilities and bring them, make them really realize the value that they can provide? I think there's still a lot of TBD there and a lot of stuff we're working on, of course, but I think there's still some unknowns and some things that are just going to require innovation and listening to the customers in the market.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, John. With that, I'd like to close the Q&A session. Note, you'll be prompted to take a short survey once the webinar concludes. We greatly appreciate your feedback regarding the event. Please join us at Performative.com to answer any additional questions you may have. Continue this conversation with the experts you've heard from today. We'd like to thank John and Bob for their great time and insight. Both speakers are clearly leaders in their field, an excellent source of information on today's topics. On the survey, you'll be able to connect with them with just a click of your mouse. Thanks again to today's sponsor, Aria Systems, and we'd be remiss in not thanking the audience for your valuable time and support of Performative. I'm going to go ahead and close down the webinar now. And one of you'll be presented with a 1-minute survey again. You have the opportunity to request an introduction to any of the speakers. Aria Systems will request information regarding CFO Dimensions. We hope to see you again soon on another Performative event or online at Performative.com. And please make the rest of your day great. Thank you very much.